proud that this is actually our sixth session that we have provided. We started these learning exchange cohorts because of the feedback we received from multiple counties in which they wanted an opportunity to learn from each other, learn best practices, tools, and we heard you. And after surveying what were some topics that were of interest, today we present to you a topic that was highlighted by several of you as a priority, and that is youth engagement. So welcome to our May 2022 Rural Exchange cohort. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to welcome you as we're going to be asking you to introduce yourself here shortly. We're also going to be covering our community engagement work. As you know, the discussion continues as we are currently as a county working on our comprehensive prevention plan, and community engagement is an element that is critical to build partnerships and to build a support with our residents that we serve, listening to what their needs are in order for us to develop responsive program and services. We also are very blessed to have a panel of experts that will be supporting us, and they will be sharing with us a model of service delivery that they provide when working with youth. And they are the presenters from the Center for the Study of Social Policy. And we will have them share with us some insight, tools, and also they will be providing you towards the end of this presentation resources that you will be able to utilize in the work you do every day. And then we will also have a facilitated discussion with questions that you will be able to ask. So please just note that we will be using our chat box function today, and feel free to add any questions so that our presenters can be able to provide you any insight around the topic. And then as always, we cannot do this without you. We are grant funded, so we definitely need your feedback. And in closing, we will ask you to please complete the evaluation. So with that, let's go ahead and move forward in sharing about us. Who are we? We are Strategies Technical Assistants. We are a nonprofit organization. We are located in Sacramento, California. We actually provide services throughout the state of California. We are funded by the Office of Child Abuse Prevention in a grant that allows us to work with your county to provide support on the development of prevention planning. And as you know, there are multiple elements that are happening around prevention planning, and our goal is to be your technical assistant consultant, support you, and also, because it is a grant, provide you services that typically maybe your county is not in a position to do through your staffing or maybe through funding. So we are here to support you. If you're not connected to us, please visit us. We will be providing our website at the end of our session today. Please connect with us. We are looking forward to working with your county as well.
Well, and I'm Barbara DeGraff, and I am one of the Strategies TA facilitators, and I know you all, many of you very well. Thank you so much for joining us today. Bryn put in the chat a couple of items. If this is your first learning exchange, rather than each learning exchange taking time to go through what is a learning exchange and talk about Strategies TA, we developed a couple of brief documents that are in the chat. We would hope that you just take a brief moment, look at them, so you get a feel for why we're having these learning exchanges, and also some information more in depth about Strategies TA and how we can work with you. So please take a moment if this is your first learning exchange. I know for many of you it is not. So what are we going to talk about today? Lucy, my co-facilitator, talked about where our area today is youth engagement. And in the registration, we asked you a few questions about your experience with youth engagement. And just to give you a brief feel for what you all said to us, you were kind of evenly divided, a third, about where you wanted us to focus. So in our work with our guest facilitators from CSSP, we're going to be focusing on youth engagement in services, sort of like that one-on-one, in leadership, as well as in program planning and specifically prevention planning. So those are the three areas that we're going to focus in on today. about a third of you, we asked if you currently have in your community a youth council or a similar body where you bring youth together to get their feedback and input. About a third of you said, yes, we do have that. So we hope, share information in the chat. Please feel free to share information. We want to make this engaging about what you've learned, some of your challenges, some of your successes. And then also we want you to think about for our next, because this is a part one of a two-part series. So our next learning exchange, which is going to be August 23rd, 2022, will be part two, where we're hoping to actually bring youth to the table. So in particular, those folks that already said they have a youth council or similar entity, we're going to be reaching out to you, and we hope you'll reach out to us to see if you can identify some youth that we can bring to the table so we can actually have a discussion and we can demonstrate the power of youth engagement right here in a learning exchange. That's our goal. And we have been authorized to provide some reimbursement for the youth that participate in the form of like Amazon gift cards, something like that. And we're hoping that by having it in August, hopefully a lot of the kids will be available, not necessarily in school, and it will be remote. So anybody from across the state will be able to participate. So we're really going to rely on you for part two, but for part one, we are relying on our experts from CSSP. And just really quickly, if you don't already know us, Meeting the Strategies TA team. I'm Barb DeGraff. I'm a TA consultant. I live in the South Lake Tahoe, El Dorado County, and we want to do a land acknowledgement as well today. So I am coming in from the beautiful land of the Washoe people. Lucy?
Thank you. And I'm Lucy Hernandez. As I said prior, I am a strategies technical assistant consultant, and I'm coming to you from the land of Nomalaki, and I primarily serve the Northern California section for our counties.
And I am Bryn Pascal. I am the data support specialist for strategies TA. I am here to help with any of your behind the scenes technology needs. And today I am coming to you from Sacramento, California, on specifically the land of the Nisenan, Southern Miwok, and Maidu.
And I also wanted to acknowledge our other strategies colleague, Anvi Din, who was on today as well to help us. Hi, Anvi, and thank you, Anvi.
Yes, huge thank you to Anvi for all of her work.
Great. So let's find out who's here with us. So we would like to see and learn about all the professionals that are here with us. If you're from California, if you're maybe from a different state, but please, if you can go ahead in the chat box, go ahead and share your name, your agency, what county you're coming from, and then the tribal territory where you live or you work. We would love for you to share with us. And in the chat box, you'll find a link that has been placed there by Bryn, and that is for you to find what land you're coming from, what you're working from, if you're not sure. So please go ahead and share with us.
Oh, I'm just looking in the chat. We have Donald Powell.
Oh, wow. Calaveras County.
Yes, Manahual, Donald Powell, Owens Valley Career Development Center, Tiniwan Nobi Family Literacy Program. That sounds really interesting. Solano County.
Oh, Nevada's here. Nice. Oh, Anna. Hi, Anna from Lake County. We're doing actually our prevention
Humboldt.
plan this afternoon.
You got a busy day. Milestone Aftercare Supervisors, Bakersfield Homeless Center. Wonderful. We have Pat. Hi, Pat Porto. Amador County. Wonderful. Take a quick look. Brianna, Live Violence Free. Alpine County, Washoe Lands. Wendy from the Pomo Lands. It's here, Miwok. And for those of you that participated in our last two-part learning exchange, that was specifically focused on engaging tribal communities, not only tribal leaders, but also tribal community members, partners. And we have two recorded learning exchanges available on our strategies YouTube webpage. So I would highly recommend part one. We had representatives from the Office of Tribal Affairs, provided fabulous information about disproportionality in child welfare, as well as just a historical trauma reference. And so I would really recommend you look at that. And then we heard from some of our peers who are doing great things, Alpine County, Calaveras County, Amador County in particular, working with their tribal partners. Thank you so much. I see Dina, lots of friends on the call today. Wonderful. Excellent. Okay.
Fresno. Excellent. A lot of counties, definitely
Yes.
representing statewide. So welcome. We're so excited to have you. And as Barbara said, if this is your first time, welcome. If this is, if you've been attending our sessions, just know that we're so excited that you're here with us and that you're in this journey as we provide this continuous support to our professionals statewide.
So just very briefly, before we get into the meat of our day, we're going to hopefully today, we want you to actively engage in the Learning Exchange cohort. We're going to keep an eye on the chat, so feel free to chat at any time. If you want to raise your hand, if you know, we really want to try to make this as engaging as possible for you. We want to learn from each other. That's really important. And we want to obviously explore strategies to include the youth voice. And why do we want to do that? Learn about why it's so important and how it can improve services, and it can really change the landscape of the programs that we develop. And then again, as I mentioned, think about who you might bring to the next meeting. So think about, you know, youth in your community, think about folks that have been through the child welfare system, things like that, people that we can learn from so we can hear their voice. Just mark your calendars for our next 2 learning exchanges through calendar year 2022. We've got Tuesday, August the 23rd scheduled. October 25th, we don't have a topic planned yet. So we'll keep that in mind, see where we're at in August, and we'll take a little time then to identify topics for the upcoming learning exchanges. And so far, all meetings are 9:30 to 11:30, and that seems to work, and all are recorded. So if you can't stay for the whole meeting, not a problem. Okay, Lucy?
Great. So one of the resources, one of the things you know about our learning exchanges is about resources and ongoing learning opportunities. And if you did not attend our May 10th webinar, we please want to share with you that in the materials that we shared with you prior to today's session, we provided you the link that will be also pasted in our chat box. But it is really a webinar around community engagement, the collective impact that we can have in our communities, and how to really develop effective community engagement. Highly suggest for you to check out that webinar if you did not attend, and also download your community engagement toolkit. If you have not had the opportunity, please feel free. The link is also in the chat box. And if not, like I said, in the materials we provided you is also under this slide, you'll find it. It will quickly just ask you for you to just add your information, and then you'll be able to download the toolkit, which is very, very good. It's broken down into elements that you can utilize. So a resource for you as we move into the work around youth engagement.
And also Bryn put the link to the community engagement toolkit in the chat, as well as to the Caltrin website with all of our reimagining prevention webinars. And it's incredibly well organized. I always send folks there. It has the recordings, it has the materials, and the recording from our May 10th webinar is up. You know, the gentleman who was our speaker is Junius Williams. If you haven't heard him speak, he is fantastic. He's from the Collective Impact Forum, and he brings the toolkit to life. I say, if you want information, you can read the toolkit. If you want inspiration, listen to Junius talk about community engagement. So I'd highly recommend you take the time to do that. And we're going to take a few minutes before we get into our CSSP presentation. I just want to share with you, this is one of the toolkit really is a toolkit. It has, you know, numerous different activities that you can undertake with your teams in your local communities. So this is one of the ones that I really like, and it's called Assessing Your Table. And this is on page 9 of the toolkit. And what this lets you do is take a look, and you can see it helps you think about your team. How can you identify the strengths and the gaps, looking at, issues and experience? How many people on your team have had actual experience personally with this issue? How many people have worked with people that have had experience? How many people have had no direct experience with the issue? Demographics, especially in our rural areas, right? Demographics become, well, it's important everywhere, but in our rural communities, they can become very important. We might have a rural urban interface like in El Dorado County. So it's really important, again, to look at demographics, looking at geography, and looking at direct engagement. And what I really like about this is it helps you assess your table. If the most of the people that are at your table are on the outer ring of this graphic, so they're not from a historically disenfranchised group, they're not living in the target area that you're trying to serve, they don't work with the target population, and they have no direct life experience, you recognize, right, that you need to do some work to bring equity and community voice to the table. So this is just one example. I would recommend, again, go listen to Junius, bring this to life for you. And we're going to have a little bit of fun. I hope you think it's fun. We're going to take 5 minutes, and we're going to get into small groups, and we're going to take a look at this exercise. And this is also from the Community Engagement Toolkit. It's called TRIZ. TRIZ. I don't know if that's an acronym. I can't find anything that speaks to what it stands for. But this is an adapted version of this TRIZ. And basically, it's a 3-step process that you can do at your in your place of work, in your community, with your groups. Today, we're going to just try step 1. So step 1, we're going to take 5 minutes in small groups, and we're going to try to think about, if we were going to do community engagement the worst way possible, make the most mistakes, do it the worst way possible, what would we do? What would that look like? And just take your time together, chat. This is make a list. Somebody can write it down. We're not going to actually come back and debrief on this, just to see if you enjoyed it. I'd like to, a thumbs up or a thumbs down when you come back. Let us know. And then hopefully, when you get back to your communities, you can think about going through step 2, which is where you think about what you're currently doing, see how much it matches up with what you could do if you did it the worst possible way, and then think about step 3, which is, how do you create community engagement that really works? Okay, so we have how many people on the call? We have 62 people. So maybe if we could go into, what do you think? Groups of 4 or 5? How does that sound?
Yeah, I have it created 5 or 6. So that way,
Perfect.
if people get thrown. I'd also like to say to our interpreters, it is going to try to throw you into a group. Please, you don't have to join.
Don't you join.
Stay in the main room with us.
And if you don't want to do this, you can stay in the main room as well. You can decline to join, but we hope you will join, and just take 5 minutes and think about, if you were going to do the worst job possible, and think about it in terms of youth engagement or any engagement, but today we're talking about youth. So they have their special pieces about youth engagement. What would you do to make sure it failed? So we can go into the groups now, and we have 5 minutes. So we'll come back together at 9:50.
All right, we'll wait for our groups to join us. Looks like 2 of the groups have joined us so far. The rest of the groups are still meeting.
Lucy, I miss your pretty background.
Oh, good. Thank you. I know. When we do these big state ones, I have my strategies, but when I work with your county, I have my own personal office. Yeah, Lake County will be busy this afternoon
Yes.
working on our prevention plan.
I think we're back.
Yeah, we are back. Yes, yes. We're just waiting. We were waiting for all the groups to join us. So, all right.
So anybody want to just thumbs up or thumbs down? How did you like it? Was it something that you liked or you didn't like? Thumbs up if you like it. You can do your little reaction if you liked it. And if you would do it at your, I liked it. That's why I did it. All right. Well, thank you for doing that. It was really fun. I had some great ideas. So am I sharing my screen again? Can you see it? No. Okay.
We cannot see your screen.
All right. Let me do it right now. All righty. And then I'll unshare in just a second. All righty. Well, thank you for taking the time to do that, and go back and do parts 2 and 3. Lucy.
Great. Thank you. All right. So let's introduce our speakers. Our speakers are with the Center for the Study of Social Policy. And the center is a national nonprofit policy organization that connects community action, public system reform, and policy change. They also work to achieve racially, economically, and social justice, socially. I'm so sorry here. They work to achieve racially, economically, and socially justice for children and families to thrive. They provide ideas into action. They promote public policies grounded in equity. They support strong and inclusive communities, and they advocate with and for all children and families marginalized by public policies and institutional practices. So today we have Arthur Fidel Argumanis. He is a senior program analyst with the Center for the Study of Social Policy. We have Casey Getty, our senior program analyst, and we have Francie Zimmerman, our senior associate. They will be presenting today information around youth engagement and how we in our counties can learn to utilize some of the tools and the research that they are providing to support our youth engagement in our prevention planning efforts. So with that, I will go ahead and pass it on to our speakers. Thank you so much.
And I would just like to mention Francie. Francie's from Philly, so East Coast, and Casey's from my home state of New Jersey. Yay, Casey!
Wow.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing and we'll turn it over to CSSP.
Awesome. Just 1 second. Sure. Okay, lots of clicks there. Good morning, everyone, or afternoon if you're on the East Coast, like Francie and I are. So good morning, and thank you again to Strategies TA for having us. My name is Casey Getty, and I'm one of the senior program analysts here at the Center for the Study of Social Policy, and I work on our Youth Thrive initiative, in which you all will be learning more about today. And I'll pass it on to my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Francie Zimmerman. You'll hear a lot from me during this presentation, but I would say my overarching sense of mission at CSSP is to try to find ways to increase resources and opportunities for older children, adolescents, and young adults between the ages of 9 to 26, and have worked extensively in the child welfare system, the juvenile justice system, the family court system, and worked as a longtime for a funder on a prevention agenda around reaching families long before there was any kind of allegation around abuse or neglect, but really trying to promote their well-being in their communities. I'm going to pass it to Arthur to say hello.
Hi, good afternoon. Arthur Argumanis here in Southern California. Pronouns are he and him. And my main projects that I work on at CSSP and have worked on for the last 8 or 9 years have focused around supporting community to make the changes in systems that they know need to be made. And so a lot of that has been working with parents with young children and also working with youth to make those changes and to really support them as they develop the spaces to have those conversations and to make actionable change. So very good to be with you all today.
Thank you both. And so I know we've gotten acquainted a little bit, but we love to start off our presentation with a moment of reflection, and you'll see these throughout the presentation. So be ready to use the chat, which I see you all have already been doing today. And so I wanted to start off with a question and ask you all a few different questions. When you were a teenager, what music did you listen to? What was a significant relationship for you? And what was a risk that you took when you were a teenager? And if you're bold enough, you can surely enough drop those in the chat for us. Just use confidentiality because I will be reading them out loud. So think wisely. And as you all are dropping those in the chat, I think about, when I was a teenager, which wasn't that long ago. But when I was a teenager, I listened to like hip hop, rap, R&B music. A significant relationship for me was definitely my peers and my friends. Whether I had a boyfriend and stuff like that, that was definitely significant. And risks that I took were lots of them. Some of them, I'm like, why did I do that? But, now that I have the knowledge that Youth Thrive is giving, I kind of am aware now that I'm like, oh, maybe that's why I did certain things, like, try to sneak out the house and stuff like that. If my colleagues want to answer any of those questions, please feel free to do so. And going to the chat, I see a few of you all are in here. Amy said the Grease album was some music that she listened to, made up dances to songs with all of her friends. Yep, I remember doing that as well. Jorge said the risk I took was coming out to my friends and my school. I love that. So that is a positive risk, and we'll be talking more about that as well. Shireen said hip hop, gospel, reggae. Her grandmother was a significant relationship, and moving away from home was a risk that they took as well. Let's see. Carly, alternative, classic rock and hip hop and rap and R&B. Relationships were with her friends and telling a boy that she liked him. Oh, that's so cute. Brittany, boy bands, friendships with best friends since kindergarten. Yes, love it. So you guys can definitely keep these coming in the chat, but as I'm just gonna switch gears for a second, and I'm gonna ask you all with the same questions. If you all are working with young people, what is some music that your young people are listening to? What are some significant relationships that your young people are talking with you about? And what are some risks that your young people are taking? And I know that there are a few risks that young people love to take. Young people definitely love to take. Brittany said mumble rap. Yeah, that rap is definitely not the same as it was. Rap is definitely not the same as it was back then. Family and relationships, yes, young people do talk about that. I know young people are very passionate about social media, and being on social media. Melody said young people are very passionate about social justice now in a way that we weren't in high school. I can definitely agree with that. And so you all can keep these coming in the chat. But for the interest of time, I am going to move us along to the next slide. And so as the theme for today we've been talking about is, engaging young people and centering young people. And so one thing about Youth Thrive is that it is centered around youth voice. Oftentimes young people, when they are involved in our different systems, whether it be child welfare, juvenile justice, their voice often gets lost when they get involved in these systems. And they often feel like nobody is listening to them. Their voices aren't being heard, they're being disrespected. And, you know, it's very important that we center youth voice, because at the end of the day, our systems are the ones that are impacting them. They are the ones involved in the system, and they are the ones experiencing it. So it's very important that young people are engaged and involved, and that their voices are heard. And it's not just about, you know, their voices being heard. It's also about making sure that they are engaged. So we talk about asking the young people what they would like, what they would like to see. It's about listening to young people as well. And it's really the two most important pieces that I think is prioritizing and acting on it as well. You know, oftentimes we do listen to young people. We have those youth advisory boards. We ask them what they want for the youth from the youth advisory boards. But in my experience in working with young people and working with youth councils, we often listen to them, but we don't prioritize what they say, and we don't act on it. And another important piece is that we don't engage them. You know, in my experience with working with young people, I made sure that they were a part of the change. That when we did listen to them, it was moving them from, okay, we listened to them, okay, who can we bring to the table to help make this change happen, and make sure that they are still at the table, that the young people are still at the table as well. And so prioritizing and acting on youth voice is just as important as asking and listening to them as well. And we've done that here at the Center for the Study of Social Policy and with Youth Thrive. Young people have been a part of Youth Thrive since its inception. They've had many different roles, such as leading training sessions, reviewing and giving feedback on documents, our materials, and our tools, advocating for policy change and making presentations. And they've also participated in site visits and shaping the funding requests for Youth Thrive as well. And I'll invite my colleague Arthur to add his experiences and thoughts as well.
Yeah, I think you know, this space, just for open conversation, I think especially in a virtual world, is just incredibly difficult. You know, it's so much about building these relationships with young people. I think, you know, people who come into to working with youth, you know, really find that part of it is energizing, and to now try and do it. And you could go ahead to the next slide, Casey. You know, as you know, engaging young people in various roles, you know, throughout different types of engagement. I think, you know, we often lose the sense of collaboration and partnership. And so I think one of these things that we see here is asking young people that we're working with, like, what do you want to work on? What are you interested in doing? So you see here a word cloud of different roles that young leaders have taken in Youth Thrive. So Casey talked about a few of them, and it's not just, you know, kind of help us with the icebreaker and help us with the closing, and maybe take notes, right? It's not just those. Like, if folks want to do that, that's great. You know, but are there other things that you want to evaluate? Do you want to lead the evaluation and really help partner with us on that? You know, are there, you know, organizing the meetings and developing agendas? You know, are you really interested in doing those things? Are you interested in facilitating sessions? You know, I think those are things where, you know, if we're moving so fast, we often don't get a chance to really think about those things. So I think that's the acting part that Casey talked about, not just specifically on topics or areas, but even how we do the work. How are we moving together in collaboration? Often it's trying to pull out, like, what should we change? What should we do? Who should we talk to? And that we're moving so fast that we may not get to this piece about how are we doing the work together? How are we really partnering in this work? So, you know, just really find that that's something that I would love to lift up. And I think, you know, you see a lot of people do it really well, but you also see it get put on the back burner for time's sake, because we're just moving so fast.
Thanks, Arthur.
Okay.
Can't see my team interpreter, so I think we're switching now. I think it's time.
Good.
Yes, we're switching. If you could spotlight the second interpreter again, the spotlight was removed for some reason.
Sorry about
waiting.
that. Give me just one moment.
Okay.
All right. Thank you for your patience.
Good to go. I'm not seeing the.
I'm good to go. The interpreter's good if you're good.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I just was looking for the thumbs up. So again, I'm Francie, she, her pronouns, and I've been with the Youth Thrive Initiative for a number of years now. We wanted to take some time to just give you a sense of what is Youth Thrive, if you're wondering, and put it in some context. So it is a research-informed framework, and we have a fairly lengthy paper with lots of citations and journal articles and references. So for those of you for whom that's important, we're happy to send out that link and you can take a deep dive into that material. But we really looked at a lot of research to build up this framework about what helps young people to thrive. We've done a lot of work in communities and jurisdictions across the country, really trying to build on the values and the concepts that Arthur and Casey just described. We started out working a lot in public systems and in the intrusive systems that many of you are used to that do a lot of surveillance of young people. So foster care and child welfare. We worked with probation in New York City. We've worked with other juvenile justice systems, but this is a very adaptable framework. It's meant to apply to all young people. And so it resonates with after-school programs, community-based youth programs, programs for young people who are experiencing homelessness, and for young leaders who are interested in really being champions of what they need in this day and age and these circumstances, as challenging as they are, as Arthur described. And so it really is intended to be something that can be used flexibly, all with a goal of getting to better policies, practices, those resources and opportunities for young people.
And I just wanted to note, Francie, we just dropped the 2-page Youth Thrive description in the chat. Thank you, Bryn. We sent it out to some folks, but other folks may not have received it if they registered after Friday.
Yeah. And we have lots and lots of descriptive materials on our website that's free and readily available. So we'll make sure after the event that we also share some of those links, as I said, for people who want to take a deeper dive, for instance, into that longer research paper. We sent you kind of the summary. I call it my cheat sheet. That grid is kind of the cheat sheet, but we have many longer versions for those who may need it or want it. And our goal is really to get to those kind of thriving descriptions of young people feeling joy, feeling fun, feeling excitement, feeling adventure, feeling loved, feeling connected. So we're really trying to make this accessible to all young people. Casey, we can go ahead to the next. So we're all about putting ideas into action. That's our motto and our mantra at CSSP. So we developed the framework. You're going to hear about the 5 protective and promotive factors that they're based on. For those of you familiar with strengthening families, which applies to younger children, that under 9 years old, that preschool, toddler, and infant group, you'll recognize some of these protective factors. But we really want to put it into action. We want to plant the seed with the framework, and then we want to get people doing things, making the kind of changes to their work with young people that really is that prioritizing and acting that you've heard about already. And so we looked at neuroscience, we looked at the impact of trauma, we looked at positive youth development, we synthesized all of that into a set of ideas into this framework. But I want to underscore that this is a framework that can be used flexibly. So I think the word was used already, applied to us as a model, and we actually don't think of ourselves as a model. So this is not a best practice model where you have to do these steps for this dosage over 6 weeks and here's the manual. It really is meant to be something that you can look at, learn from, add to, synthesize, and make applicable to your particular work and activities with young people. And we have a lot of training and tools and technical assistance and a coaching tool and a survey that we're going to talk about, but really think about where would this plug in? Where is there momentum already in your community or your county where you could find some opportunities to put some of this to use? It can very much be building on whatever you have underway. We want you to think opportunistically about how to use Youth Thrive. We can go to our next. So just in terms of what we do, if any of this is of interest to you, please reach out to me and we can send you more details. But I just want you to know we try to keep very busy. So we do a lot of training. We do training of trainers. We train direct service staff who work with young people. We partner with people in places and jurisdictions across the country. We've conducted a number of national searches where we reach out to others and say, we want to learn from you, similar to this cohort. Tell us some of your best ideas, and then we write about and describe those and share those, bring those people together in the before times at conferences to learn from each other. And then we have a pretty robust national network of people all across the country who we exchange ideas with, learn from, partner with, and we consider that our national network. We do webinars and share newsletters with them. We can go ahead to our next slide, which I think is another quick moment of reflection. So given that little bit of context, we wanted to invite you to just share with us your sense of what the word thriving means to you. What does thriving look like? And Casey, I think I'm going to turn it back to you. Did you want people to put this in the chat, or did we want to use the Menti?
We could just put it in the chat.
Okay. So I think in the interest of time, just so those of you who are interested in doing this, this can be a fun question to create a word cloud if you'd like. But I think for now, if you just want to put in the chat, when you hear the word thriving and think about young people, yourself as a young person, the young people with who you work with, what kind of words come to mind? Just a quick, when you hear thriving, what word comes to mind? And go ahead and put it in the chat. Succeeding. Protective factors, yay, we're already there with Melody. Having a voice, power, respect, joy, engaged, a sense of purpose, overcoming barriers, growing, blossoming, smiling. I love that. Even just if you have to do work over the phone, you may have been counseled to smile over the phone. Makes a big difference. Inclusive with peers, reaching full potential, happiness, happy, healthy, positively growing. I love that expression, Anna. Thank you. Stability, informed, huge, achieving, great. Managing ups and downs in a successful way. Pat, that's a theme we're going to return to many times today. Great. Those are such evocative words, and we're really fans of language that sort of brings these concepts to life in ways that feel real and relevant to your day-to-day work. So let's go ahead with those sort of feelings of thriving very present in our mind. Casey, do you want to go ahead and share our theory of change, and we'll get into then our factors?
Yes. So this is our theory of change for You Thrive. And so as you can see, our logo is like a leaf logo. And so we kind of use this gardening analogy that we like to, that we're going to stick with. So just stick with us for a second. And so as you can see here, the person on the screen is planting seeds. And so we look at the person on the screens as the practitioners, the people that are directly working with young people. We are the ones that are planting seeds in our young people, right? However, but in order for seeds to grow into plants or into flowers, whatever, or into trees, whatever it may be, they need things to grow. And so we look at the protective and the promotive factors as the sun. We need lots of it. And so we need to increase the protective and promotive factors. And to run through these very quickly, and don't worry, we'll be focusing on these throughout the presentation. The protective and promotive factors are youth resilience, social connections, knowledge of adolescent development, concrete supports in times of need, cognitive and social and emotional competence. And so by increasing these protective and promotive factors, we can start to achieve some dynamic outcomes. However, we also need to reduce the risk factors. Now, we also know that risk factors, we can't diminish them. They can't always go away. They're not going to not exist, but we can reduce them. And some of those risk factors that we can reduce by increasing the protective and promotive factors are psychological stressors, lack of supportive relationships with family, peers, and adults, lack of opportunities for positive growth and development, and unsafe, unstable, and inequitable environments. And so as you see here, the risk factors are the rain and the storm. However, again, plants still need water to grow, but when they get too much water, they start to drown out. And so we need to reduce the risk factors. So that's why we need more sun, which is the protective and promotive factors, in order for our plants to grow, to help to start to achieve dynamic outcomes. And some of those dynamic outcomes can look like physically and emotionally healthy, hopeful and optimistic, compassionate and curious. Young people will have the ability to form and sustain committed, caring relationships. Also success in school and the workplace. And we also see young people giving back to their community through service or through community service in society. And so we look at, when you looking at Youth Thrive, we look at thriving from an ecological perspective. And so with thriving in the middle, we think about the things that young people need in order to thrive. And so again, use the protective and promotive factors. So wrapping them around young people that can really help them to thrive. But what else do we need? We have key values that are important, that are built, that our protective and promotive factors are built on. And then also the people, program, and policies and communities are very important as well. They're the ones that need to follow the key values that we have, that the protective and promotive factors are built upon. And then also by following the protective and promotive factors, a young person can really thrive. And when we really invest all three of these things, we really start to see a young person be able to achieve success and also be thriving and healthy.
All right, so I'm going to tackle our first protective factors. We're going to go through all 5. Here you see our sort of standard definition for resilience, because I feel like you're all already our close friends there in California. I'm just going to acknowledge to you all that our understanding of resilience is really undergoing a change at this point. It was really important for us as we looked at the research and science around resilience that we acknowledged that this is a capacity that people can develop. This is not an on-off switch. We knew that going into it. We really wanted to underscore that because sometimes people think like, I'm either in the resilient camp or I'm not, but no, it's actually a capacity you can work on and develop, get better at, and it goes up and down for all of us. So we know it's something in flux, and you can get stuck in a crevasse on the mountain and then find your way around it, and others can help you with some of that rope climbing skill. The way in which it's really changed, I would say significantly since we first asserted this framework, is to really begin to think about how resilience needs to be coupled with the concept of resistance and protest. And in both your chat comments and in the TRIZ exercise that I was in, people are already calling up the importance of social justice and the context that young people are living in and some of those difficult challenges. So we really need to understand the role of protest and resistance, and that those can often be appropriate responses to stress, especially if you're talking about societal factors like racism or other forms of discrimination. But I also, for those of you, and it sounds like it may be a significant number on the phone, who are thinking about individual young people and case consultation and developing a plan for services, where does this fit both resistance and resilience? And so one of the things that we do a lot when we're called in to participate in that kind of review around an individual is when we hear some of the words like not compliant or resistant or oppositional or behavior issues, let's talk about these behaviors. Hope some of that maybe feels familiar to some of you when you're talking about young people. We'd ask you to stop and kind of reframe that for yourselves and for each other, and maybe even for the young person if they're included in the room, which we hope they are, which is to consider what in their situation they might be protesting against. What's the real why underneath whatever that behavior is? And to really think about resistance in that sort of reframed way. We know, as Casey's already said, there's a lot of different kinds of stressors out there, a lot of different kinds of risk factors. Some of them are sort of typical life events, getting ready for a test, getting your driver's license, the physical changes that are stressful around adolescence. They can be events that are difficult, but kind of within the realm of what a lot of adolescents experiences. So a parental separation, a car accident, something happening out there in the environment. There are individual factors. A number of you in your risk taking talked about drug use, alcohol use, vaping, smoking, right? Those are very typical risk factors and stressors that can require resilience. There are the interpersonal factors that are really in the forefront. Casey talked about the important relationships with peers and how that was such a significant thing to her as an adolescent. So we need to be thinking about those relationships online and offline, in real life, at school. Is there bullying? Is there loneliness? And then the community factors that I've alluded to. So is there violence in the community? Are young people dealing with homophobia, racism, discrimination against them for their gender identity? So we really want to be thinking about resilience as a response, but looking at it with those environmental factors and context in mind. We can go to the next, Casey. So when you think about resilience, we don't want this just to be an abstract concept. We really want you to think about, so what am I doing in my work with young people, either in individual ways or with groups of young people, in a community context, in a school, in a service organization, in a system, to think about, do they have a consistent relationship with one caring adult who really believes in their strengths and promotes high expectations and encourages them? Do they have that? How is your work helping to build and sustain that relationship? Provide real opportunities, not token opportunities for decision making. Are they setting goals around their own service plans? Are they constructively engaged in the way that Arthur talked about, not just a meaningless show up, check the box, but really part of the action? Are we really giving them a chance to take some personal responsibility, thinking about the traits and behaviors, the kind of range of roles that we've alluded to that give young people some chance to rehearse some of these skills and to practice? And then finally, do they have ways to do some of that positive risk taking? Risk taking is inherent in adolescent development. So are we giving them a chance to take some positive risks and to learn from and process the inevitable failures and mistakes that we all make, but often for young people, those are treated with consequences and a punitive response and not much opportunity to really regroup and learn from. And so we want you to really think about, as you go back into your offices this afternoon, are there one or two ways in which you can put resilience as a protective factor into your practice? I think we're going to turn to social connections next, but Arthur, did you want to say anything further around resilience before we go into connections?
Yeah, I mean, I think this piece around, especially now, I think, you know, as parenting and as working with young people has shifted and changed, I think, you know, so many folks from previous, growing up in previous generations will talk about the independence that's been lost, the ability to like ride a bike around the neighborhood until it got dark and then make sure you're home by then. You know, it's very different from even my own kid, just thinking about my childhood versus theirs, like the limiting of that risk taking, but looking at them as, well, how come you don't know better? But are we really giving those chances, right? And so I often think about how that relates to the work that we're doing with young people, about exactly what you're talking about, Francie, giving giving young people, you know, not judging them for the risks that they're taking, and not making assumptions about the things that they're doing, and you know, really trying to support them through and look at it from different angles if it is, you know, potentially hazardous to their health and things like that. So I think that would probably be the only thing that I would want to lift up, is really, you know, our perspective plays a big piece into this. You know, our own upbringing and, you know, community, as, you know, some folks talk about right here, not being able to leave the block or ride bikes with their neighbors, things like that.
Thanks, Arthur. Moving on to our second protective and promotive factors, social connections, and the definition is having healthy, sustained relationships with people, institutions, the community, and a force greater than oneself that promotes a sense of trust, belonging, and that one matters. And so we know that the research says having a connection to at least one caring adult is probably one of the most important factors in a young person, so that they can learn how to overcome adversity and develop resilient skills. Having a caring adult in their life as a teen helps buffer against depression, substance abuse, school problems. And as we all know, during this period of time of adolescence, peers are very important to a young person. They help young people test out new identities, negotiate the world outside of the family, and begin to understand social norms and navigates the tricky path of intimate relationships. And so in Youth Thrive, we know that social connections are broken down into two different things. So young people need to have connections to people, and then also connections to their community program, which includes programs and places. So exploring one's connectedness to community also involves a young person giving back in some way. Healthy, supportive, and caring relationships such as family, other adults, peers, or close friends, constructive engagement in the young person's community or school, and also being able to have physically safe, stable, and supportive, equitable environments are important as well to one's connectedness. And also having the ability and quality connections is critical as well. Social connections have various needs and they can look differently. They can look spiritual, informational, guidance, affirmative, have hope, and instrumental. Social connections help young people be able to build their knowledge and skills. It also helps them build their sense of belonging and gives them meaning in their life. So for example, we've already talked about social connections with people can look like peers. It can look like family members. It can also look like a mentor. It could look like a teacher or somebody that they're involved in or involved with. It could be a pastor or a church group. And then it can also in the community, it could be church. It could be their baseball team, their soccer team. It could be a club that they're a part of in the community. We've talked a lot about social justice in the chat. That could be something, whether they're a part of a social justice group or, forming groups to go and help other young people learn about voting. It can be various different things, but it's also important. Young people need to feel like they're able to do something or have something meaningful in their life. Arthur, did you have wanted to uplift some things here as well?
Yeah, just wanted to knowing that several of the folks on the call are doing this within rural and tribal contexts. Just want to lift up how this could play out kind of in those spaces. Just really thinking about in a rural context, you might have to drive a bit of ways to go meet with other people, right? You might be in spaces that are pretty spread out, and so even before the pandemic, but especially now, these connections to people might only be electronic. It might only be over, several, different types of devices. It might only be over social media. And so, exploring what healthy social connections and what types of support and what that brings into young people's life with them, like what joy does it bring into their life to be part of I don't know, like these little gaming crews, right? They play these video games together, and it's like, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about that. What does that bring to you? Like, why does that excite you? Why are you so excited to jump on that? Why can you be on that for hours if you were allowed to? But then even thinking about the other side of that, right? We so often, unfortunately, see, with different tragedies across the country, that it also has that flip side where it can be, dangerous, and some of these groups, can start to go in different places. So just acknowledging, just having open conversations with young people about the different ways that they're interacting with people that they may or may not know. I think it's a really interesting piece to think about those social connections. I think the other piece Casey just touched on very briefly is this piece around communities and programs and places, especially in tribal communities, that I've worked in across the state and across the country. The connection to land, the connection to ceremony, the connection to elders, those things are embedded in, a way of life that is steeped in ceremony and tradition. And so, helping to support young people to stay connected in those ways is an incredible protective and promotive factor. So just want to encourage folks, even for urban Native youth, that they still have those chances to kind of explore that and to be supportive of that as youth workers. It's something that it's a very important role that we could play.
Thanks, Arthur.
Okay, so I am going to tell you that at Youth Thrive, we love neuroscience and we love talking about the brain. It really guides so much of our work and thinking about these protective factors, and it's so dynamic and fascinating, but it isn't just because we find it fascinating. I will share with you that when we do trainings, both with young people and with staff, this is the segment of the training when we get to go into this in a lot of detail, where people have those light bulb moments and those ahas, and now it's sort of making sense and it's falling into place. So if you haven't had a chance to do a deeper dive, hopefully we can go to our next slide, Casey. This wave will entice you to learn more about what's happening in the adolescent brain, because second to early childhood, this is the big wave of brain development that's going on. And teenagers are really trying to understand all of those changes, what their emotions are, what their reactions are, the intensity of what they're feeling. And so much of that is driven by the neurological and hormonal and physical changes that they're experiencing during this really exciting phase of development. It's why so much innovation and creativity happens in that adolescent and early adulthood period. I want to give you just a couple of quick insights that may be new to some of you if you haven't had a chance to spend much time thinking about adolescence. We can go ahead to our turtle and rabbit, that we hope will give you a little bit of that feeling of an aha moment. So we've talked a lot about the risk taking that is developmentally appropriate for adolescents and young adulthood. And part of the reason is that our brains do not develop in lockstep. And for those of you with adolescents at home, I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of nodding heads. I can't see all of them, but the prefrontal cortex, that turtle that is moving slowly and making slow and steady progress, is the part of the brain that's responsible for problem solving and organization and logical thinking and reasoning and control. And our rabbit friend here, who is racing ahead, is the limbic system. And that develops much more quickly, and it goes in great leaps during adolescence. And guess what? That's the part of the brain that's ruled by emotions, and it's looking for rewards and wants to process those risks, and is very, very sensitive at this stage of development. And so there are a lot of things that when parents, when family members, when faith leaders, when community members, when teachers can think about this. I have certainly had the experience of hearing adults say to the young people in their lives that they love, hold on a minute, can I talk to the turtle part of your brain for a second? Can we just put the rabbit on hold for a minute? Like, this can be a helpful shorthand when things are starting to get really heated and you're experiencing a lot of that sort of crazy decision making that we all remember pretty vividly. This can be a helpful insight to help us grapple with that adolescent brain. We can go to the next one. And part of what makes adolescence so exciting and productive and creative and innovative is that relationships and experiences that you have in that phase of development are really helping to shape your brain well into adulthood. We're doing a lot of pruning. So the new information and learning that we're doing helps to eliminate weak and seldom used connections and really strengthens the connections that are most frequently used. And so that's why sometimes helping young adolescents have the chance to practice new skills and try out things that they're learning and make mistakes and regroup is huge, because you're doing that development, formation, pruning, and rewiring that, again, are just part of this exciting phase of development. And then also, in terms of adolescent development, a couple of you mentioned this in your chats, and I know it came up in my small group, the impact of trauma. There's a lot of science around this. We're not going to try to cover all of that today, but I think people are now pretty familiar with adverse childhood experiences and the impact that they can have on development. Our really important message here is that it's not permanent, and we always want to be thinking about adolescence and young adulthood as an opportunity for healing, for understanding what we've been through, for putting that in some perspective, and really using those new positive relationships, experiences, time with peers, new opportunities to think about how to grapple with some of that history, perhaps, of loss, ambiguous loss, grief, that young people, and particularly young people who have gotten caught up in these more intrusive systems, can often bring a lot of damage and displacement. And so we really want to put that emphasis on where are we giving people opportunities to heal and to focus on their well-being. I think we have one more slide around adolescent brain development. So this is your whirlwind course today. But we've talked a little bit about positive risk-taking, about the importance of protest and activism. I want to underscore also the importance of creativity, of, think about the performing arts, think about sports. Often for adolescents, those are huge, right? Being part of a team, getting a chance to be a performer, running track, whatever it is, responsive to that young person's interest in cars and technology. Arthur mentioned gaming, to really go there with them. That can be something that often gets overlooked in our practice with young people and really should be front and center. And then the final thing is sort of a quick phrase, which is stop out, not drop out. This came to us from a college-based program where when young people were really struggling and would say, I'm going to have to drop out, the counselors got into this mode of saying, well, let's think about it as a stop out. Like, let's think about this as a time to regroup and replan. And we think that as application in all kinds of arenas when working with young people, which is to really help them think about, do I need to set a new course? Did I set a goal that isn't working for me anymore? Has this relationship failed? Am I not in the right place in terms of school? Or have I not had the right job opportunities? And not to think of it as a dropout, but sort of a time to regroup, rebuild. And as professionals, as parents, as community members, we can play a huge role in bringing that perspective of healing and figuring out the next step. So that is not just, I think, good practice, but it's also developmentally appropriate for what adolescents and young adults are experiencing. Casey, back to you for our fourth factor.
Thanks, Francie. So our fourth factor is cognitive and social emotional competence, which is acquiring skills and attitudes that are essential for forming an independent, positive identity and having a productive and satisfying adulthood. And oftentimes when we get to this factor, we're all like, well, what does that mean? So to help you all out a little bit more, cognitive is thinking and social and emotional is feeling. It's making sure that young people know how to think and feel and how to regulate that. And so we look at thinking as planning for a future, solving problems. And the feeling part is recognizing and being able to manage their emotions and also being able to empathize with others. And so as we've talked about in our little mini knowledge of adolescent development session, we talk about how the limbic system develops way faster than, or slower than faster than the prefrontal cortex. And so it's important to help young people be able to learn how to manage their emotions and recognize what they're feeling, and then also being able to talk to other people about that. And it's also important to help young people be able to plan for their future and solve problems, and encouraging them not to keep it to themselves and being more interactive. And so this also looks like life skills. And so oftentimes when young people are involved in child welfare systems, they have to learn life skills. They learn life skills from the system, and they participate in these life skills classes. And oftentimes they're in these workshops or in a classroom. And so one of the things that we encourage at Youth Thrive is that life skills does not always need to be in a workshop. It happens just like in social work school or any other thing that you need to learn, or profession you need to learn. You get the most experience when you're doing hands-on. It happens in the community. And so what this looks like is, young people volunteering or participating in community service, giving them leadership roles, going back to what we talked about with Youth Voice, them participating on a youth council or being involved in different leadership activities. It's being able to learn the skills that they need for cognitive and emotional competence. And it's maybe them participating, as you see here, in different events out in their community. And it's also allowing them to be creative as well.
All right, so our final factor, I think I'm doing this one. Casey, am I? Yeah.
You're good.
Last factor, concrete supports in times of need. This one is a more intuitive run. Concrete supports, we're talking about housing, healthcare, mental health support, education, job training, money. These are the concrete things that everybody needs. We can go ahead to the next slide. But we also want to send the message that people should be able to navigate systems and resources and be a part of a context where they can get help and the supports that they need to manage. So this is also about comfortability with asking for help and the skill base to be an effective self-advocate. And I'm going to just put in a pitch for something that we did here that I feel like was a good example of concrete support. So we knew we were going to be talking to a rural learning exchange there in California. And so I reached out to what I would say is our most experienced rural state and site in the Youth Thrive universe, which is Nebraska, and asked our friend there, Sarah Riffle, who's at the Nebraska Children and Families Foundation. I hope maybe some of you have had reason maybe to get to know Sarah and their work in Nebraska, which is stellar. They've been with Youth Thrive for about a decade. And I just thought, let me send her a quick email and see if she can help us on this. And she sent back a really thoughtful, like 2 pages of very concrete examples about working in a rural context. Everything from, you know, the logistics of transportation to providing money for people when they're spending time on the road, to not letting the urban centers kind of dictate the parameters of the conversation, nor dictate the location of those conversations. So she had a host of concrete ideas in the rural context. And I hope, if nothing else, you can take the 5 minutes to just read through Sarah's email. It's posted in the same way that Barbara referenced the other documents. So it's available to you. And Sarah would be, you know, available for other kinds of peer exchanges, because I think she was excited, as you can see, about the opportunity to talk to like-minded folks in the wonderful state of California. And so there are lots of concrete supports there. It was a good example of my asking for help and getting back even more than I noticed. And we really do think this is a chance for you also to think very concretely of where are the young people in your work right now. So about a third of you, as Barbara noted, said you had youth councils. A third weren't sure. So there's a task for you right there, find out. And a third said no. So we feel like right away within this group, there's the ability to start thinking about, do I concretely have some young people engaged in some activities, and thinking about all the many roles that Arthur's described. How can we start to engage and enlist and hear their ideas for what they might like to do as part of the planning, prevention work, community work that you are all a part of. So I took a little liberty there to expand on the concrete idea, but I did want to give a little public service announcement for the feedback from our friends in Nebraska. Casey, back to you.
Thanks, Francie. So we're going to do a quick moment of reflection, utilizing the chat again. The first question that I would like for you all to answer is, which out of all 5 protective and promotive factors, which do you feel you are the strongest in currently?
So if you had to pick resilience, adolescent development, social connections, concrete supports, cognitive and social emotional, people may have, I'm realizing we should add this to the slide, Casey. Which one do you feel like, I got that one? That one I know what it's about. Please go ahead and just put it right in the chat.
And we put social and emotional. We have great mentors who do amazing work with youth. Awesome. Concrete supports, social connections, concrete support, social connections. Youth connection, social emotional resilience, good. Social connections, oh, that's a big one. Thanks for dropping that, Arthur. And while folks are, and just for the interest of time, because we are running out very quickly, if you all could answer which protected, looks like social connections is one that most people are strongest in, but which protective and promotive factor do you think you could use some practice on? The one that needs work is resilience, adolescent development. We have lots of resources about adolescent development, resilience. Okay, Pat put social connections, youth resilience, and knowledge of adolescent development. Cognitive and social and emotional competence, youth resilience, cognitive, okay. So I'm hearing a lot of resilience and knowledge of adolescent development would be the two that need some work. So thank you all for participating in that moment of reflection. And just gonna move us along here to talk very briefly about our key values. And so moving from thriving and our 5 protective and promotive factors, like I stated earlier, our key values are what our protective and promotive factors are built on. And so we know that young people alone cannot thrive. They need families, communities, society to help them reach their full potential. And so in order to focus on individual youth, the key values inform our youth focused programs, services, policies, and all support thriving for youth. And so our key values are 1, centering youth voice and value, center and value youth voices, identify strengths and use them in your work, build relationships in context of families and communities, commit to being anti-racist and combating other types of discrimination, recognize the impacts of trauma and identity and identify for opportunities for healing, celebrate individual identity development, including culture, ethnicities, gender, social, sexual and orientation and disabilities, and be self-aware and take good care of yourself. And Arthur, did you want to lift up any
Yeah,
other values?
well, I mean, I think, you know, I do a lot of organizing work with a lot of youth workers, a lot of folks who work with, especially youth who are coming out of various institutions and lockdown facilities and things like that. And I think I see so many of these values as like, this is the reason why I do this work. This is, you know, what drives me to do this work. So I think, you know, just having these called out here, and seeing the interplay between them, you know, I think there's plenty of them where, you know, we might really focus on, say, like number 3, building those relationships. And the flip side of that is are we at the same time, you know, working on number 7 and valuing and taking care of ourselves and being self-aware in that process? You know, thinking about, you know, number 5, are we recognizing and really thinking about those impacts of trauma and then those opportunities for healing, and at the same time really celebrating, you know, number 6, looking at that identity development. Are we asking questions about how, you know, young people's identity development may be shifting? Are we having those open conversations amongst them so they can learn from each other? So I really think, you know, as we continue down this path of working with young people, just having like a values centered approach is what I feel so many people who come into this work really start with. But I also know that within certain contexts and you know, as the work gets busier and busier, you could sometimes start to lose a little bit of sight of this. And, you know, maybe that first thing that goes is the taking good care of yourself because you have so much, you know, work that you want to do for others. You know, maybe that centering and valuing youth voices, as we talked about early on, you know, maybe that starts to get pushed to the side a little bit because we're so busy. I know what you all need. Let me just give you what you need and let me help you. And so we could just get this figured out. Let me give you the solution, right? So, you know, I really think that having these values just laid out like this and then thinking about what additional values in your work are important to you, are important in your community, are important with you and your colleagues as you take care of one another in this work as well. Knowing that you have additional colleagues, you know, is really important in this work. So just wanted to lift up kind of the interplay between these key values and how important it is to think about those additional values that you would bring or you would add to these.
Thanks, Arthur.
Okay, so we're going to bring it home with the tools and resources, Casey. So this is, I hope, good news for all of you, because Barbara already alluded, I think, to some tools that you've looked at around community engagement. And we have lots of tools related to Youth Thrive. So we have a short video that talks about what we've just described in about 7 minutes that features young people and staff and mentions all 5 of the factors. We have 3 short animated videos that are about a minute each. We have lots of handouts. As I said, we have a longer academic paper. We have a report on relationships. So those of you who wanted to maybe take a deeper look at that question of connections, we have, I think, a very accessible set of information about what helps relationships be transformational, what helps them promote change with young people. So all of this is really on our website, where you can browse around and find what's useful to you and put that into action right away. And we're excited that we have something new, which we're calling our blueprint, which is a set of practice tools. So it's really aimed at people who are working directly with youth and young adults and their supervisors. It has coaching questions. It has a matrix to kind of look at how your organization is performing. I think probably a similar sort of strategy to the community engagement assessment that you've looked at. So these are all available to you at cssp.org. Just click on Youth Thrive, and then you can start to kind of browse around. If you have difficulty finding what you think you're looking for, or don't see it, please email Casey or myself, and we'll help you track it down. But lots and lots of resources. And then we have a couple of training curriculums. Those are not on our website, but if you're interested in more intensive staff training, reach out to us and we can tell you what's available and how we usually budget for that, and talk through those options if that's something that some of you would want to consider. Casey, you want to give them the lowdown on Youth Thrive for Youth?
Yes, so similar, very similar to our staff training. We have a training specifically geared towards young people. It's again similar to our direct professional training. It's just our training is an 8-hour training developed by and for young people. It's interactive and actionable, and it really goes through the 5 protective and promotive factors, and really helps promote young people, promoting healing, supportive relationships, and positive growth, and teaching young people how to apply those 5 protective and promotive factors to their life, and also giving them that knowledge of adolescent development, and hopes that they will take what they need and apply it to where they see fit.
And then I'm going to just do a real quick commercial for our Youth Thrive survey, which I hope some of you have maybe already heard about, because California has taken a strong interest in this and quite a few counties are already using it. But one of the things that practitioners and policymakers, decision makers asked us for was, could we have an assessment that's been field tested that actually looks at these 5 protective factors and helps us assess those with young people, and then that could be used for case planning, for service delivery, but also for evaluation and research purposes. And so we worked with a research entity called METIS. We worked with a group of young people as advisors who were with us throughout, making sure that the language, the format, the look, the tone of the assessment tool really worked. We then did field test it, so it's now valid and reliable. It's all online. It can be done on a computer, on a tablet, or a phone. It takes about 15 minutes. It is free to the field. You can log on and start using it right away. And it asks a series of questions, and there's a Likert scale that young people respond to, and then I think leads to a lot of really helpful conversations for adults and workers who are concerned about those youth. So just wanted to put in a little plug very quickly for the survey. Again, you'll find this on our website, and you can sign up for it and start using it immediately.
Great. And so that brings us to the end of our presentation, and we are right at time. So if you want to know more about, Youth Thrive, the Center for the Study of Social Policy, the projects that Arthur is working on, you can always sign up for our newsletter, and you can always visit our website. And for more information about Youth Thrive for Youth, the training, Youth Thrive, the staff training, you can surely enough reach out to Francie or myself about it.
Thank you so much. Really, I have to give you credit for being the most time right on it for any presenters that we've had. Can I ask you to just, while we wait for some questions, maybe in the chat, or if folks want to, unmute themselves or raise their hand, can you talk a little bit about the getREAL initiative? Just give us a little information on that.
Sure, I'm happy to do that because I think, and Arthur and Casey can chime in related to it. So the getREAL initiative at CSSP, REAL starts for recognize, engage, affirm, and love. So I think that acronym in this case actually is those are very meaningful and potent words, and it's all about sexual orientation and gender identity. So it's what are the circumstances, opportunities, and challenges for working with LGBTQ plus youth in the context of their families and communities, and how can we recognize, engage, affirm, and love them. And Barbara, I did share with you, because I kind of knew that we had so much we wanted to pack in for Youth Thrive. We really wanted to be respectful about timing, that we wouldn't also be able to cover everything that we've done with getREAL, which is similar to Youth Thrive, worked in a number of communities, has a series of tools, and has a set of practice and policy recommendations that particularly speak to LGBTQ youth. So we did send along that report. I know for some of us, sometimes you open a report and you see it's 20 pages and you think, oh, I just don't have time. And I really want to urge people to please scroll through that affirming report from getREAL, because you'll see in it that there are 12 very applicable lessons. It talks about data and how we collect data and how we've gotten kind of trapped into asking questions that fit with our old notion of gender and our old notion of race and ethnicity. And we've really got to now kind of bring that up to current context so that we can hold ourselves accountable for actually being responsive to what young people are really telling us about how they see themselves. There are a set of questions for leadership. There are ideas around implementation that really build on a lot of things that I think are already important to you, which is, are we part of a team? Are young people in on it? Do we have a backbone organization? Are we using some of these tools of coaching and training and being strategic about it? So I would say getREAL is kind of a companion piece to Youth Thrive. It's worked in different places. Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh is a place where they've done a lot of work and tried a lot of this out. So if any of your cohort here in the Learning Exchange are particularly interested, I would direct them towards that getREAL report that you've shared, and certainly reach out to us, or if there would be interest maybe in a future date of going even deeper into getREAL and some of those lessons learned, we would be happy to share that. I do feel like we did give that topic only passing attention today, just because we really did want to be respectful of time and give people a chance to ask questions. But getREAL is our LGBTQ youth focused initiative.
And I just wanted to share the report that Francie's referring to. I did send out to a lot of folks that registered prior to Friday materials. Everyone will receive those materials, as well as we can share the presentation slides with the, that's a question, I'm sorry, with our folks.
Yes, I'm dropping them in the chat now.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then somebody wrote, and Stephanie said that the link on the website to sign up for the newsletter is not working. And Arthur, he wrote back saying it's working for him. It might be, yeah, okay. It should go to Constant Contact. So, and Stephanie, somebody else said that it's working for them.
I just dropped it in the chat.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Excellent. Excellent.
We've had a little bit of issues. The Constant Contact has been a little bit sensitive, we'll say. So I'm just going to also, I think Casey's email was in there. I'm also going to put mine. It's totally fine. People can just send me an email saying, you could just say in the subject line, add me to the newsletter list, and we'll make sure you get that addition done. So if it's not working for you, don't stress about it. Send Francie an email. We'll add you. We'll love to enhance our list.
Yes, yes.
Just a question. It looks like Guadalupe might have signed up, but didn't in October, but didn't receive any emails. Is it maybe going to spam, or is there something that they have to acknowledge maybe?
There shouldn't be. Would you just send an email to me and we'll try to track it down, because that's odd. But we'll see if we can get better technical minds than mine on the case and figure out maybe there's it should just show up in your inbox. So I'm sorry you've had that frustration.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask our panel of experts or thoughts on? I just want to mention that I received a text from Lucy, and she's having some issues at her home. It looks like there's a fire outside of her home.
I'm here.
Oh, you're
I'm
there?
here.
Okay,
I'm here.
good.
I'm just seeing the fire trucks arriving, and I don't.
Yes.
It's black. There's black smoke suddenly covering my whole block, so I'm not sure if it's a house on fire, maybe a
Yes.
neighbor. But I'm just keeping an eye on it. So if I get offline, is because I may have to go see what's going on.
We totally understand, and all of us here in California are, we're like also, at least for myself, we're very
Yes.
sensitive to fire and et cetera.
Yes.
Oh, and then Anvi dropped into the chat box a link for our survey. So that's our evaluation, which we'll share with our presenters as well. But also, I just want to encourage folks, if you have a youth or a group that you want to highlight, a youth council for our August learning exchange, you can either email me or feel free to put it in the evaluation. I will follow up with you. I'm also going to follow up with some of the folks on the call from just from what I'm hearing from folks. So because we really want to bring the youth voice to the table, and we want to demonstrate how we can, it's not just about bringing folks to the table, but it's also thinking about how does that voice change and inform the way you do business, right? So that's one of the things that we talked about in our earlier group, was if we were to do youth engagement in kind of the worst way possible, we wouldn't bring youth. We would have leaders that are not relatable. We would do things at a time that doesn't work for youth. So, but it's really about, why do we want to do engagement with our community? What is our purpose, and what is the point? Is it that we want to educate youth? Is it that we want them to inform our work? So you really have to think about the what and the why of your youth engagement. So I just wanted to share that. The other thing that I was thinking when Arthur was talking about social connections and thinking about, the rural context and the tribal context, again, building on our tribal engagement learning exchanges, this could be a great way to engage with your tribal community and also encourage youth engagement from both the tribal community, but to actually be a part of what's happening in your local tribes, because they may be doing some specific youth activities that you could learn from. That was one of the big takeaways from our last learning exchange, was the need to really listen and learn from our tribal partners. So, just reaching out and finding out, are you doing any kind of youth engagement that is culturally competent? Is it something that we could, participate in and learn from, and then bring to our youth? So it's just some thoughts that spurred for me. Any other thoughts from our learning exchange folks? Any other pieces to add? Well, we can end early if folks don't have any thoughts or ideas. Any questions?
So just quickly, if you do have youth that would like to present, as Barbara said, for our August, Barbara, do we want to go ahead and put the email addresses where they can get a hold of one of us, or do you want me to put both our email addresses?
I will email them.
Okay.
They all know that I'm like the stalker. Everyone on the call, as well as anyone who registered, will receive an email from me with Lucy's usually in the Lucy's email address is usually in the 2, because I do everything as a blind copy for all the participants, just in case you don't want to share your emails. But yeah, you'll receive an email from us, as well as all the materials.
Requesting. I'm seeing some direct messages. That's what I was saying. If they have a youth, how they would be able to get a hold of us. So,
well, they've got multiple ways. You can email us. We're gonna send out all the materials, which will have our email addresses, and then you can also fill it out in the evaluation, which
Perfect.
both Anvi and Bryn put in the chat. So if you utilize the evaluation, you'll be able to, if you have any ideas or thoughts, want us to reach out to you, just make sure to put your contact information. And
Okay.
anyone who had a youth council who put that in their registration, I will be reaching out to you as well directly and just asking if you have anyone you want to either bring to the table or you know, that we can invite, that can be a participant or can be an attendee.
Yeah, I just want to say also thank you so much. This is why we have these peer learning opportunities, because we get to hear from others. Sometimes we don't know how to even approach a topic. So I just want to say thank you to our panel members. You know, we want to hold these rural exchange sessions for you. So we want to hear from you. As Barbara said earlier, we do not have a topic for our October. That's correct, right, Barbara? Was it October? So please let us know if there's any topic, especially because there is more work that will be that you'll be focusing on around your prevention plan. And we want to make sure, like, what are some of the challenges you're having? What are things that we can support you as consultants around prevention planning efforts? So feel free. We are here to serve you. We are just very blessed to have a grant that allows us to help prevention work in your community. So we look forward to hearing from you. And also, I just want to say thank you so much, Angelica. Yes, the fire is it sounds like there may be some evacuations happening. So Angelica, thank you for checking on that, because I can't check on what's going on with this fire while I'm here. So thank you so much for keeping me posted on what's happening. So
thank you. And
prayers.
yeah.
The
You're
California
welcome.
fires.
Yeah, there's Glenn County Sheriff has just posted something too about where the evacuation is on Facebook. So
Oh gosh.
good luck and be careful. It looks like it's from Road H to Road E.
Yeah, and
They're evacuating
I'm
people.
on Road H. That's why it's so
Well,
close
I
to
think
me.
you should go.
Yeah.
I don't really think you should be on this phone anymore.
No. I will be
That's
here until they tell
self-care.
me. Until they tell me it's time to go. I'm here.
All right.
All
You're
right.
signed up for the alerts, I hope.
I hope. Yeah, I don't know. Well, I don't know. But thank you, everyone. So are there any questions or any, as Barbara said, any other questions you may have for us?
Feel free to unmute yourself. We're at 48 folks, so you know we're free. If there's anyone out there that has any particular challenges they would like to share with the group, or some successes, maybe you have a youth council that's informed your work or made a change or something like that you want to share to inspire us.
Or if your county just opted in, if you know if child welfare just opted in for the FFPSA funds, let us know. Maybe we can support your county with prevention planning services. So
That FFPS is the Families First Prevention and Services State Block Grant Program.
yes, sorry,
That's a program
I'm
of
acronyms.
I know we're acronym heavy, but that's a program that has state dollars to help implement the Families First Prevention and Services Act federal program, which provides Title IV dollars, which were previously focused on children and families that were in care in the child welfare system, and now will allow the state of California and the counties to utilize those Title IV monies for families at risk of child welfare involvement. So it's a huge shift in the way that we can serve families and hopefully keep them out of the trauma of child welfare system. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to contact us again. We'll give you whatever information we can. Right. Well, I'm not hearing any other thing else. I would just like to thank our friends from CSSP, Arthur, Francie, Casey, as well as our ASL interpreters for the beautiful job you've done interpreting for today. Thank you so much for the great information. I learned so much. Gee, I wish I'd known this when my son was a teen, but right now I can implement it in my work. I'm a CASA volunteer, so it helps me to be a better CASA. Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, have a great day.
Have a wonderful day.
And don't forget to complete your evaluations.